generations ask me what I did to prevent the sterilization, the medicalization, and the mutilation of children who had not even progressed through puberty, that I will be able to say that I did everything that I could. Make no mistake, the $1 million lawsuits are coming.
Bring it, bitch!
The medical establishment has sidelined eminent sex and gender researchers like Ray Blanchard, Michael Bailey, and Ken Zucker. It has thrown its lot in with a political and partisan movement, as even the transgender doctor, Dr. Ann Lawrence, has stated so clearly. It has run roughshod over the peer-reviewed literature, which suggests that affirming children in their transition prior to puberty will lead to harmful and horrific outcomes. This morning I want to give you 3 lines of evidence which show that we are facing an epidemic of damaging behavior, which is and will continue to ravage a generation of adolescents and young adults unless we speak up and stand up. Firstly, every study ever done on the subject finds that when you simply watchfully wait when a child has gender dysphoria, that it goes away 80 to 90% of the time. Puberty is a time of incredible distress. Hormones are raging. The brain is developing. Identity is forming. These children are not yet psychosexually mature beings. Their brains, and particularly the decision-making parts of it, will not be fully developed until well into their 20s. And all that you have to do to keep them from being sterilized, medicalized, and mutilated is to watch. Simply to wait for the normal pubertal maturation processes to occur. Instead, doctors, even pediatricians, are pathologizing puberty. The multi-million-dollar lawsuits are coming. Secondly, political, judicial, and medical activists are not following the evidence when it comes to transition as a treatment for gender dysphoria. The best studies show the worst outcomes for those who have transitioned. Studies like Simonson 2016, Desjardins 2011, and Asherman 2011 show extremely high levels of suicidality and psychological problems after transition, even though transition is supposed to treat those very things. The only longitudinal study, listen to the evidence, the only longitudinal study of any length is Lindquist 2017, which shows that while there are psychological benefits 1 year after sex reassignment surgery, in the honeymoon period, it is a hard and fast deterioration after that. 5 years after transition, the group had just as poor or worse quality of life measurements than before transition. Those pushing transgender ideology have either not read the literature, or their judgment is so clouded by an extreme ideology that they cannot see that an entire generation of the most vulnerable in our society is being damaged by this affirmation-only movement. These are our most vulnerable. These are the most vulnerable. They are far more likely to have psychological problems, far more likely to be suicidal, far more likely to be autistic, far more likely to have eating disorders, far more likely to be adopted, and far more likely to be same-sex attracted. This is why there are LGBT people saying that transitioning children is conversion therapy. The answer is not transition. The answer is not to cut off the parts of your body that cause you distress. The answer is not to medicate yourself for the rest of your life. The answer is not to ruin your opportunities of ever having children. Multi-million-dollar lawsuits have been launched over far, far less. Lastly, We are seeing an epidemic of gender dysphoria taking hold of our young people. In the UK, where we have some of the best statistics, the number of children and adolescents coming to gender clinics has gone up 20-fold in 8 years. In what world is there no investigation when a mental disorder increases double or triple in a population? Nevertheless, 20 times. Here in BC, Dr. Wallace Wong claims that his gender clinic clientele has risen from 4 clients in 2010 to now 1,000 clients in 2019. Given the rarity of gender dysphoria, it should never be that multiple children are coming out together in classrooms as we are seeing right now. But what we are facing is a social contagion. We've known about social contagion for some time now, but roughly 15 years ago, the literature began to explode on this phenomenon, and we now know that many different behaviors like obesity, suicide, mental illness, mood, divorce, and sexual behaviors are socially contagious, and particularly amongst young people. If people had even a remote understanding of what the literature says about social contagion, or for instance the history of the spread of bulimia, they would know that what we're facing is a social contagion. Gender dysphoria used to be predominantly a male mental disorder, but now it has swung drastically the other way, with females drastically outnumbering males by significant margins, as much as by 9 to 1. Online communities like Tumblr and Reddit are feeding this contagion, with many detransitioners stating that this is part of their delusion at a vulnerable time. Just this last year, Lisa Littman's groundbreaking study on rapid onset gender dysphoria chronicled many of these connections. And just this last week, the world leader in the study of social contagion, Dr. Nicholas Christakis, tweeted that he believed that the incredible increases that we are seeing in gender dysphoria is a social contagion. Is anyone listening? The literature is clear. The world leaders on this evidence are clear. Is anybody listening? Or will the only thing that awakens our world be the multi-million-dollar lawsuits? Why does it have to be cash that controls our culture? Why can it not be convictions? Convictions that male and female are distinct and that distinction is good. Convictions that children need the care and protection of their parents as they grow through puberty. Convictions that physicians must first do no harm. There are multi-million-dollar lawsuits coming. They are coming for organizations like WPATH. They are coming for hospitals like Vancouver Children's Hospitals. And they are coming for unions like the BC Teachers Federation. Hey. Let's keep things peaceful. Let's keep things peaceful. All we want is a little bit of space. Hey, guys, if they give us just a tiny bit of space, all right? Okay, here we go. This is a peaceful rally, here we go. We live in perilous times, friends, but the ones in the greatest peril are this youngest generation. It is for them that we must speak. This is why you must not be silent. This is why you must not be cowed by fear. This is why you must be willing to lose your reputation, willing to lose your job, willing to go to jail if it comes to that. Care, concern, and compassion demand your courage. So friends, let us step up and speak up. Thank you.
Nothing on Seattle. Is anybody here afraid of the temper tantrums? Because I'm not. Just wanted to make sure. In refugee camps across Europe, there is an increased demand for adult diapers. Is this because of a fetish? No. It's because the refugee women in those camps know that to take a walk to the bathroom at night is a risk of rape, and they would rather sit for hours in their own human excrement than to risk walking to the bathroom alone at night. Amnesty International has called segregated toilets a human rights issue, and the difference between whether or not many girls will be able to receive an education. These scenarios highlight a bleak reality that everyone here at this rally knows. Since the dawn of time, women and girls have been oppressed on the basis of their sex, not their perceived sense of gender, and not their affinity for glitter. Across the world since the dawn of time, there is a category of humans who routinely are victims of the majority of the world's sexual crimes, of the world's domestic violence. They are sold as sex slaves to rapists. They are sold as child brides. They are aborted in utero at the first sign of a vulva. And this category of humans has nothing to do with whether or not they want to wear a dress. Policing pronouns is a luxury of the privileged. Women and girls across the world who are fighting for very basic human sex-based protections do not have the luxury of sitting around making BS demands of other people's pronouns. This is some navel-gazing, narcissistic nonsense.
Shut up!
And that is about enough.
Shut up! You're stupid! You shut up! Thank you.
You can safely assume that you have a whole lot of privilege when you can look at the protections that third world countries are fighting tooth and nail to achieve and declare that these same protections are somehow oppressing you. Let me tell you this, they're not. This is not a civil rights issue. I've heard a lot of people here saying trans rights are human rights. It is not a human right for a grown man with a penis to shower next to little girls at the gym. It is a human right for a little girl to say no. No, we do not consent to violation of our privacy. And as a rape survivor who worked really long and hard for the right to find my own boundaries, I am disgusted by the number of people who are virtue signaling nonsense at the expense of the rights of women and girls to say no. No, you may not shower with me. No, I'm not okay with the way you're behaving. This ain't love, guys. This is not what love looks like. If you have to shut people down, that's because you are afraid of what they're saying. Because you know that it's true. There are actually many parallels between the way that these activists are behaving and the way that sexual and domestic abusers behave. They're gaslighting, they're grooming children, they're crossing boundaries. They're telling you that they're going to kill themselves if you don't do exactly what they want, even if it costs you your own dignity. That is abusive. If that many people are going to threaten suicide, then maybe we ought to take a really strong, hard look at why, or the mental illness that ought to be treated instead of codified into law as the norm. Transmania has become a cult religion, complete with chants that are nonsense and everybody knows, like trans women are women. Trans women are not women, they are men. It is a cult religion because of the mind control it exercises over the masses who are afraid of being called a couple bad names or some mean guy in a wig with a sign. You've got to start becoming a lot more afraid of what will happen if you don't speak up than what will happen if you do. They're a cult religion because they shun dissenters. Is this love speech? Hate speech is not free speech. Is this what love speech looks like? No, it's not, and you know it. Women and girls have been told to get over it, to shut up, to sit down, and to be quiet, and I'm here today because that's the last thing we're going to do. I represent a coalition of women from both sides of the political spectrum. Everyone from conservative Christians to far-left radical feminists and lesbians who have had enough of this bullying that is driven by gay male money at the expense of women. I am here because as long as I have a right to the word no, I sure as heck plan on exercising it. No, I do not consent. No, I will not be quiet. Trans women are men. Women cannot have penises. The problem is not the presence of darkness, it is the absence of the light. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage against the dying of the light. It is time for the light to rise and shine. There is no time like the present.